Hi, everybody. I'm Sonny Rivera. I'm part of the program committee. So I just wanted to take a moment and introduce Geoffrey Sexton. Geoffrey is with Red Classic. He's been there since, I think, 2014. Geoffrey has a master's in international business from the University of South Carolina. I'm sure he's proud of that university. At Red Classic, he's started the BI function there overall, and he manages that team, monitors it, and shows the value that they get out of their BI operations. So if everyone, please welcome Geoffrey Sexton.
How's everybody this evening? Okay, great. So thank you, Sonny, for that great introduction. As he said, my name is Geoffrey Sexton. I am the Business Analytics Manager at Red Classic Transportation Services. So first I want to say thank you to the Analytics and Big Data Society to let me come speak to you today a little bit. My presentation is going to be a little bit more about the hands-on aspect of starting up a BI program at an organization, a little bit less about the technology piece, but we are going to talk a little bit about technology, obviously. So a little bit about me. I love really bad puns, and I wanted to start with an icebreaker if it was really topical for this group. So why do you think you should take a data scientist into the jungle? Anybody? Why should you take a data scientist in the jungle? They're really good with Python problems. It's okay. I told you it was a bad joke. So anyways, that aside, as I said, I want to talk a little bit about how you grow a BI program in a growth organization and hopefully pass along some of the lessons I've learned over the last 5 years in doing so. But to start, I need to talk a little bit about the organization I work for. Red Classic is a comprehensive transportation and fleet management provider. It started in 2011. It is a wholly owned subsidiary of Coca-Cola Bottling Consolidated, located here in Charlotte, North Carolina. A big piece is that we are now recognized as one of the top 100 transportation providers in North America, actually 81st to be precise. And as you can imagine, to grow to the 81st largest transportation company within 8 years, there's a tremendous amount of growth that occurs within an organization. You probably all realize as well that that growth comes with a tremendous amount of organizational challenge in terms of being able to report and develop information for the organization to consume at the speed of business to be able to make decisions quickly. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but the end point of this is that a BI team has to be extremely agile to keep up with that speed of business. Along these 5 years, kind of came up with 3 core requirements of what it takes to be able to build a successful BI team within an organization. The first point is organizational alignment. Put more simply, that's buy-in. How do you get people to believe in the data that you're presenting and trust that what you're putting forward actually drives business value? It builds trust, right? If people don't trust what you're presenting them, they're not going to trust the information. You're not going to get any buy-in within the organization, and your function's not going to perform well. Second, you have to be able to creatively solve problems. You have to actually be able to provide value to your organization. If you can't do that, then once again, that trust falls apart and your function falls apart as well. And third, you need agile analytical tools. And that's the technical part of the presentation, which will come a little bit later. You have to be able to absorb change at rapid pace. I love the phrase speed of business because that's the truth. You have to adjust at the drop of a seat and do whatever you need to be able to get things done. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the early life of Red Classic and the BI function, talk a little bit about where we are today and where we're going. Hopefully going to highlight some of the challenges that a growth organization brings and how we've overcome some of those. So, starting with the early life of BI at Red Classic, as we were introduced and invited to this presentation, we were told that one of the major themes was fake news, and I think that's very interesting. Fake news in an organization, it exists everywhere, right? It doesn't exist just on CNN, NBC, it exists in every organization you're in. And fake news is just another word for bad information that's been provided to somebody who has to make decisions, right? It can be tremendously impactful to your organization and it causes a lot of damage if you put the wrong information in the hands of someone who can make decisions. So, BI's purpose within an organization, the way it provides value, is to prevent that type of misinformation from getting in people's hands, right? And I can't say that at the beginning of our program, of our BI program, that we didn't fall into some of these follies of bad information. When we started, the organization was not aligned on how to use information to drive business value. There was constant infighting between different departments of the company with what information meant and how it should be interpreted and how it drives business value. Analysts sat in function and didn't have a core guiding principle to allow them to move forward and to guide their analytical efforts. On top of that, our tool set was pretty limited. We had Tableau, which was great, and we had some SQL scripts, but everybody had them on their own individual computer, and those SQL scripts started to sort of veer off into their own paths where people added things that weren't aligned to the overarching direction of the organization. We didn't have a centralized place to pull information that was scrubbed and validated by a BI function. And we had very limited access to information for the organization. We have a tremendous number of systems. The only systems we could pull from were our TMS, which is Transportation Management Software. We use TMW, and our maintenance software. We didn't have access to SAP information for financials, and we had limited ability to get information. So you're probably asking right now, okay, well, you have all these problems. What did you do to combat that, right? And so that's what we're going to get into, where we're in the current state, right? And I'm going to flip to this slide, and we'll get into it here in a little bit. But in 2016, I convinced the organization to form an actual BI function. We centralized all of the analysts within the company under one banner, whose role was to provide accurate information and insight to achieve business objectives. That was the value proposition. That's where we provided value to the organization. The first thing we did was we addressed the issues with organizational alignment. We defined organizational metrics. We met with the operational leaders. We had conversations. I know, the social aspect, the soft skills that people don't really talk about in your technical programs, the things that you have to do to actually be able to get action achieved. This required a lot of internal discussions. It took 2 years to get internal alignment about what we should measure and what was important to the organization. At the same time, we started to address our tool set issues. So I'm sure some of you recognize the logo for Tableau. We started to utilize Tableau in a different way. We started to develop SQL scripts that aligned to our overall business direction and the metrics we just designed. And then we started to use those SQL scripts and publish them out to SQL, to Tableau Server. This gave us a centralized platform where our analysts could actually pull information that was aligned across every single person pulling information. You now no longer had people with their individual workbooks on their own computers. You had one place that was providing information that regardless of who pulled the information, everybody got the same answer. On top of that, it gave us a place to publish reports that the business could then consume. We had dashboards and metrics and all the flashy stuff that everybody likes to see when they think about analytics, right? And we gave easier access for people to access information. We were starting to begin our journey towards a self-service model where with a centrally curated group, we could actually control information in the right way so that people could pull what they need at the speed of business and be able to make decisions quickly. So how do we do that? We have our Tableau server here, and we have our 2 SQL servers that we pulled from, our 2 systems, which we still were limited to 2 systems. And then we pretty much did all of our extract and transform in SQL. Most of our transformations were done in SQL, and then we did some minor transformations in Tableau, some calculated fields and things like that. But there were limitations to that. If we wanted to do a complex transformation where we needed to run a script and then take that script results and then actually run a script on that, we couldn't do that in Tableau. And we didn't have a location where we could do that transformation either. We also had to use a lot of temp tables, and those are fun. Blending of information was difficult, right? We had 2 major systems, TMW and TMT, the maintenance system and the transportation system, and blending that information was very difficult in Tableau by itself. And another major issue we ran into is that when we wanted to try to do time series analysis and trend analysis, having that point-in-time record was very difficult because we were pulling off of live records that would refresh on the extract. So if we wanted to go back and replicate a prior data set, or see at this point in time, hey, how many loads were not billed, or see what that trend is over time, we didn't have the capability to do that. So we realized that we had to develop new tools to provide our analysts the ability to creatively solve problems and be able to empower the business in more ways. So that moves forward to where we are currently. Last year, the business once again changed. We moved forward to a second operating software for our business. A little bit about transportation. You have your asset management, which is your own fleet, your assets that you own as a company, which go out and actually deliver freight. Then you also have logistics, which is where you actually pay someone else to go do that work for you. Well, we needed a tool to be able to do that, to be able to grow our business. So now we had two different systems that had operational information, that had cost information, that had revenue information that was split, but we didn't have a platform to be able to merge that information easily. So we identified a need to be able to develop a better tool set to be able to get to where we need to go. So in 2018, we partnered with a consulting firm out of Seattle, Washington, called Decisive Data, and they came into our company and we walked through our problems and we started to walk through the roadmap of what we needed to do to be able to develop a agile, dynamic tool set and the BI stack that would get us what we needed to have to be able to perform an analytics future state. This was approved by the business, and this year we've been in the process of launching this. So, just to kind of go through some of what the process is, we still have our clouds data here, our server, applications, Excel files, and user information. This information is all pulled into our Snowflake space using Matillion and based on a Azure virtual machine. Matillion is a pretty powerful tool. It has a ton of connectors that allow it to connect into different platforms. In this case, it actually has native connectors into Snowflake. We realized because the business changed so much, we couldn't go to a traditional data warehouse model where you have a Snowflake schema or a schema of some sort. We had to just be able to pull information in and then adjust on the fly from what we needed. So we did it, instead of an ETL process, we went to an ELT process. We loaded the information into our environment into semi-persistent storage and semi-structured nature. And then from there, we perform our transformations in the Snowflake environment. Part of the reason why we do this is because Snowflake allows us to infinitely scale up and scale down our compute needs as we have additional information pulled into the system. This also gives us the ability to bring on new systems. As I said, we have multiple systems that we have throughout our company where we're only pulling from two. This is going to give us the ability to pull from SAP, from our RAND units, which are the electronic units on the truck, to be able to track where they're going. It's going to give us the ability to track all that in real time and actually tie it to operational metrics like maintenance costs and things like that. Additionally, it provides us a platform where we can build a reporting layer off a true actual conformed data model, which we're currently undergoing right now, where we're trying to merge the operational information between the two systems. It also provides us the ability to do that true point-in-time analysis where we can actually upload a date timestamp and say, okay, at this point in time, we know exactly what this data says. So if you have a slowly changing dimension, we can say, okay, at this point in time, our information said this, and tomorrow it says this, and we can then track that over time and just be able to put out metrics for different portions of the organization. And finally, allows for more complex transformations. Kind of a cool thing that we actually had happen. We have a network script that actually goes through our entire network and actually breaks down how each leg of a journey for a truck was actually done. That script was done with many temporary tables in SQL, and it took about 10 minutes or so to run 1 week of information. With our Snowflake environment, we can now run 8 years of network information in 6 minutes. So this is allowing us to really, truly ramp up our analytical capabilities and scale as we need and provide our analytical team and our team members the tool set that they need to be able to grow. So kind of the last piece there is that all of the tool set we have, every single technical tool out there has to have some value. It has to be able to prove some value back to the organization. And this is actually going to be able to do that, to be able to track maintenance cost per mile run, to be able to track exactly how much utilization each asset's doing, to be able to track downtime for assets in real time and be able to see what areas are actually up or down and be able to put metrics and red light, green light scorecards together for portions of the organization is something we haven't really had easily at this point. So at the end of the day, the technical part is excellent, and it's part of absolutely one of the 3 critical things you need to be able to do to actually establish a BI function. You need to be able to have organizational alignment and buy-in. You need to be able to build trust that way. You need to be able to provide value, and you need to be able to have tool sets that allow you to adjust at the speed of business. So I want to thank everybody today for my presentation. That's pretty much it. I have questions or?
Yeah. You mind if I ask a couple of questions? Yeah.
Certainly.
Maybe you can repeat the question so everyone can hear it.
Sure, absolutely.
So I do have quite a few because a lot of the things you do are similar to what I've done in my career.
Okay.
But I'm curious how you dealt with going from these are what we're using every day and running the business on today, and here's what we're doing and developing for the future. How do you manage that?
Okay.
Kind of competing for it.
So You're talking about how we actually manage the current metrics and versus what value we're going to be able to provide with, the new tools we're moving into? Is that?
Well, actually more, how did you manage the business that was running operationally on your legacy system and the building out and the effort to do your new system?
So,
Or was that even a challenge?
it is a challenge, actually. We've had numerous discussions throughout the business where people have been like, well, your revenue figure's not right because you're not pulling revenue from this system, we have revenue from this system. In the short term, part of that is a dialogue of telling people, hey, here are the timelines we have established to be able to get this project done. On top of that has been some Access work, some Excel work, and just a little bit of roll up your sleeves and manage through it as we develop out the program and develop out those additional tools. But a lot of it comes down to communication and clearly establishing and limitations and telling people, here's what we can do and here's what we can't do, and here's the timeline of when we'll be able to do what you need to be able to do. In most cases, people will be able to understand that. Now, if it's a critical business need, obviously you have to flex and be able to do what you need to do to be able to accommodate business needs. But for the most part, we're able to report on 90% of the organizational needs. Luckily, the other operating system is now not fully in place, so we have a little bit of leeway. But as it continues to ramp up, we will have to get this project finished, which is actually this month. We're actually coming to the close for that project, so it's exciting. Good question.
Can you talk specifically about any ROI value that you brought, whether the savings, top line revenue, whatever else? Can you talk specifically about those and how you use that to justify
The cost of establishing? Well, I'll do probably the easiest ROI statement. Our finance department relies on our reporting to be able to close the books. So if we don't have that, they can't actually recognize finances. So that's a pretty easy statement to say, hey, if you don't have this, we can't operate from a financial perspective. On top of that, there's a lot of analysis in terms of that network drift I told you about, which is being able to actually tell the operations team in real time and much more quicker pace, okay, hey, don't route this here, route it over here instead, it's going to save you money. Don't run this truck to here, instead go to a different location. On top of that, just the metrics of being able to truly track our per mile costs, because we can pull in all of our actual SAP information and be able to say, okay, every mile you run costs this much, every mile you generate this much. If you make these decisions, this is the cost impact to the business. I don't think it is.
So we'll bring the speakers back at the end.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Anyways, awesome. Well, I think that's my curtain call. So thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate your time and look forward to the next presenter.